Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
This is Austin Linney with Construct Your Life. I've got Mr. Spencer in the house. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Austin. This is quite the honor, quite the excitement for me to talk about stuff that's near and dear to my heart. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love it. You know, I didn't tell you this, but my joke, I just saw a guy the other day. I was hanging out with the Jake and Gino guys in Knoxville. I ran into some of the students because I know Mike. And I was joking around that, like, in order to be in multifamily these days, you have to be an engineer. You have to be an ex-engineer. Like, that's the joke. You know, it's like engineer, you know. And so, like, you had a bit of a different background getting into real estate, and you do a couple things. So, you know, let the audience kind of share your story and how you got started.
Yeah, you know, and I'm excited for some twists and turns that we'll talk about here, because I know we both had our time, and I still have my primary focus in real estate. But there was a whole life lived before that, and a big life around that now. And so I'm sitting out here in Silicon Valley. You know, that's the big way of saying, you know, Northern California. I'm in Alameda. It's like an island right between Oakland and San Francisco for folks who aren't familiar with that area. Born and raised in this kind of region, lived in Colorado for about 10 years or so. So I'm not totally delusional Californian who's never left and thinks it's the center of the universe, as we talked about beforehand, Austin. But I think right now, I just feel very fortunate. And the reason for that is because I wake up every day and I get to focus on the number one priority in my life, which is, you know, number one, being a great, you know, dad to our two young boys who are 8 and 4, and being a good husband to my spouse, better half, who's also the COO of our company, Madison Investing. You know, it's a real estate, private real estate company. We help investors participate in private deals and multifamily and self-storage and all that stuff. But prior to that, I was in leadership roles in fintech companies and software companies in Silicon Valley for 13 years. Did 5 different companies back to back. And that was a pretty weird experience, a wonderful one, a challenging one for a guy who played in a bunch of punk rock and metal bands growing up and really didn't find finance that interesting at all. And so, you know, my dad grew, my dad scaled an incredibly successful real estate business as a broker in real estate, residential real estate in the Bay Area growing up. And so in the 90s, I mean, he was in the top 5 in the country for a period of time. It was a very comfortable lifestyle for our family, but, you know, he was putting me to work. I had to do open houses for, you know, which I didn't want to do. You know, as a teenager, that's not the thing you want to spend your time on. It's also not cool to tell your friends that all want to work at tech companies and do the next big piece of impressive, life-changing technology that you're going to work in real estate. So I ran screaming away from all that into this career within Silicon Valley companies. And I got to say, like, in hindsight, my goodness, I never thought I'd be sitting here running like a private equity real estate company and doing that full time, in addition to finding this stuff inherently exciting and talking about these nerdy concepts of, you know, building wealth and, you know, financial freedom and all these things that are second nature to you and I. But I have to call this out up front. You know, one of the key kind of guiding lessons that I took away from that early experience, like in our family, without going too far into it, unless you want to take it there. I know that from your style and other podcasts, you get pretty real and pretty raw, which I love. It's very much my speed, Austin. You know, my family went through like a dark decade period of time. And that's largely because, like, lost a younger brother to cancer. This is a long time ago. Parents got divorced as a result, which is very common in those situations. My dad's business imploded, you know, for a variety of reasons around that. Lifestyle got downgraded as a family. Really just brutally challenging time. Lost like a set of grandparents in a car crash the year after. It was just like one after the other. And, you know, in hindsight, like, I look at the lessons learned and impressions made on me, and we all have a choice as to how hardship affects us and the lessons we take from it. And now I just look back with a sense of inspiration from, people that I've lost. And also, frankly, lessons learned from watching my dad's business take that hit. That was the one source of income that our family had. And when you have one source of active income slow down to a standstill, and you have a comfortable lifestyle, that's not good. Just, understatement of the year. But it's now, as a dad, running our business alongside Jennifer, and also trying to impart these lessons and just de-risk our lifestyle as best as I can. As a guy who walked away from my W-2 career in 2019, 5 months before COVID, before the Great Resignation became kind of trendy, that was a decision that we felt great about at the time, because we had spent so much time and hard work building that moat around our family, building that moat around our business. And now I still carve out a little bit of time to play some guitar and try to hack it up like I'm some kind of retired, rock star, but which I am not. The only people I perform for now are our kids, and I play wheels on the bus. So anyways, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. But yeah.
One of the things I found I've interviewed a couple of real estate guys that spent some time in Silicon Valley. And I think this is something that's not talked about enough, because he remembers sleeping on a couch. There was like 5 different companies that were being built like in the house they were in. And there's something to be said for environment of standards and like dreams. And what I mean by that is like, you call Silicon Valley whatever you want, but they are a group of kind of FU trend buckers, but they believe that anything's possible. Like that's, and so you can't help but let that intoxicate your soul. Mm. And so no matter when you leave that environment, it's still implanted in you. And the number one thing that I see that disheartens me with people and my clients that I see is when they think that their dreams can be obtained. Mm. And so I wonder if, because here's what probably happened. You say, okay, I put all this work in, I've set myself up for success. I leave this great job 5 months before COVID, and then COVID happens. And I guarantee you there was a moment or time where you go, holy shit, what did I do? And
every person that's walked out had that moment, regardless of how well ready they were, right?
Yeah. And I wonder if some of that kind of cowboy dream attitude was kind of a little bit of the backbone that allowed you to say like, no, we planned this out. This was the right thing. Let's go out and see this through. And I would imagine that if you're sitting here today, there's a lot of yourself that you have to thank for kind of sticking with it in this great life that you created.
100%. Yeah. And I think you are spot on, Austin, which is like the environment of entrepreneurship. I didn't know how to put a label to it. Frankly, like, we talk about that, and I use that with such clarity now as to what does it mean? Like, what's an environment of entrepreneurship? I think of that as just people who are willing to go and fail relentlessly, and understand that failure is not inherently a bad thing. It just means it is a part of the process. It's a part of the process, and it is entirely decoupled from your self-worth. And I think that thankfully, I am a guy who largely came from roles in management and leadership seats, and so reluctantly. I mean, I'm an introvert, as I mentioned up front, and that's not just something that people say conveniently, like a small talk at a party, like, oh yeah, I'm also an introvert. And you're like, no, you're not, man. It's like, no, I am the guy who needs to take breaks at a conference. I have to go find a quiet spot. I got to recharge. I can't do, I can go speak in front of hundreds of people, but I can't do that every day. And I can't I probably couldn't be a podcast host such as yourself. I just don't have that stamina, but I bring that up because I think if you look at like truly, where do people get hung up on this whole notion of like pushing forward and like trying to leave their day job they've like fought tooth and nail to get promoted into, like where do they stop? It's because it sounds so corny, but they don't literally believe that they can go do anything besides the thing that they've been doing for a long period of time. And I thought that too, until like I had mentors surround me that believed in me enough, that saw that stuff in me, and kept telling me over and over, like, dude, you can do this. It's okay if you fuck up. Just keep going and do it. Sorry. I just
No, you're good. I'd say it 50 times on a podcast. I have a great friend who's a doctor and a coach. And to your statement there, she said the statement to me that changed my life. She said, when I got divorced, I didn't love myself enough to change, but I borrowed the belief in my daughters long enough, their belief in me long enough till I believed it in myself.
Yeah.
And what happened to you happened to me. I joined a mastermind. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I had like 2 Airbnbs, but I was excited and I was adding value. And like, I talked to like 92 people in like 3 months. No BS. This is a true story. And I literally like was talking to everybody, trying to add value, wasn't needing anything. These are guys that had 3,500 Airbnbs, 3,000 units. And they were like, hey kid, like, we don't know, like I was still drinking at the time. So I was like all over the place, but they're like, we don't know what this is, but like you have something. And it's so effortlessly keep pushing towards this. And so it was like, it was loose. It was awkward. It was like what I call messy action. Like, it was just like, I'm just going to, I read a book recently called Blitzscaling. Like I'm just going to go in and figure, and then I'm going to take 6 months and I'm going to stand back and go, okay, what worked, what didn't work, put it away. Like, I blew up my life like 9 times, right? Like, destroyed it. Like, got divorced, laid off from private equity, and started a podcast in the same 10-day span. For COVID. And then got in the car to drive to Austin and drove to California. And spent a week in the desert by myself. So like, this has been a cultivation of a thing. But what keeps us, what holds us back is labels, right? I am the management person for this company, and that is my self-worth. I am a real estate investor. I am a salesman. I only sell this product. And what I try to get everybody around me to understand is your skills, they transfer in different sectors. And just because that's where you're comfortable, like, I have a girl who works for us. She's our project manager. You know what she asked me? I want to do anything that's not real estate. I'll do anything. I've literally spent the last 8 years working for a brokerage. No offense to real estate, but I want to do anything different. So you know what we did? We threw her in project managing for a crypto company. And she's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I love it all. Like, I love it all the same because it's people. It's people. And she can do what she does. And it's like, but nobody's willing to even take that opportunity to step outside the label that either they've created for themselves, the society, or the community is creating for themselves.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some of these tangible things too that we all get drawn to, right? It's not like a moth to a flame, which is job title, of course, like one of those kind of tangible things that we all chase. And I was chasing that too. I think about, I didn't used to bring this up because I wasn't sure if it was interesting to folks, but apparently folks are like, man, you got to tell people this more often because it's helpful. At 26, might've been 27, I was kind of thrust into this role of like managing scope of leading a team of over like 200 people in Colorado. And I was so far over my skis, man. Because I was excited by the title, excited by getting senior in front of my name and, eventually director stuff in the career. And like, at the time, it mattered so much to me to get that title. And like, I could tell other people like, oh, you know what? I don't care about it that much. But in reality, it's like, well, then why did I work so hard to get it? And in hindsight now, take like a person's LinkedIn title. I'm using a very nerdy, tangible thing as an example as well. Go to a coworker and you say, you know what, and they're working full time, and you can say, it's not just you. It's you got to understand you're a professional beyond that company and that role that you've posted out on the internet. There's something beyond that label. And so eventually, over time, for me personally, looking back on that now, I feel so silly. I feel so silly for chasing after that, but I had to go through that first, and everyone has to go through that first. And I think that it's a privilege to be able to sit in a place where I can look back with a clear view on those decisions and putting such a high price and premium on something so topical. And I'm like, well, now I know the lesson is like, if you want a big fancy title, go on your state's website, create an LLC, and you're a CEO. So, suddenly it's, congratulations, you've got the highest job in the company.
You're good. Yeah. It was funny. It's all the companies that we consult with. Nobody wants the CEO title.
No,
They don't want it. We've actually
harder.
changed the names in our company. So I'm chief energy officer, and we have a chief health officer, and then we have a chief business building officer, like my trio of my business partners. And like, we just don't, like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, everybody's the CEO of their own life. And I think, and I'm curious for your point of view, the number one issue that I see with my clients, besides all the personal stuff, is I have to get them to reframe the employee, I work for myself mentality. Man, it is like, I'm like months trying to get them to get out of it. Well, I don't want to fail. I can't do this. I told my, one of the people that we're partnered up with yesterday at our marketing company, I was like, I need you to fail 100 times. If you fail 100 times, we become millionaires. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
And I'm like, she's like, I'm just so used to having, like, being like yelled at for every time I do it, make a mistake. And I'm like, no, that's not, like, I want messy.
Yeah. It's almost, I mean, it does make me feel about redefining. I was just talking to Jennifer, my wife and kind of co-founder, about this topic of productivity. And why and this might sound dry, but it's honestly one of the most important concepts I think people wrestle with. And it's exactly related to what you just asked about, Austin, which is we all are just trained to tie our value, our self-worth to our productivity, as defined by how much stuff I do, how much hours I work. The most corporate possible lingo I could throw to that is optics. Am I seen working? Am I on my Zoom meeting looking like I'm paying attention? Of course, we all know rationally it has nothing to do with actually adding value in the world for how many hours that we've worked. Has nothing to do with the job title assigning meaning to us and our value as a professional or a human being for that matter. But man, oh man, when I think about, like, here's an example. When I was starting our business, and I wasn't even sure it was going to be a business, we were just investing in private placement real estate. And at first we were buying rentals before we kind of woke up on that 3-phase journey that everyone seems to stumble through for the most part in real estate, which is like, let me go buy a local rental and overpay for it because I live in California, and then I go out of state, buy a bunch of turnkeys, get up to 5 properties there, and then eventually get to doing like LP investing in multifamily real estate. And so we started doing that in like 2016. And I'm just thinking, okay, cool. I'm like going to work full time and start investing in these things, and we'll build a portfolio, and eventually I'll have a lifestyle, I'll be more comfortable, et cetera. But eventually I'm like, wait, this is not fast enough. And Jennifer and I agreed we wanted to accelerate this process. So I go and I start hustling harder than I've ever hustled. And I built like a framework and better goal setting, the same stuff I did in my day job in leadership, and I would help other people with as a leader. I was like, why am I not applying this stuff to myself? And so I would wake up from 4 a.m. with great consistency, frankly, stuff that I cannot muster right now for the life of me. I don't know how I did this. Legitimately, I don't know how I was able to.
I know how you did it.
It was crazy.
The need to get what you seeked, which was the ultimate freedom for your own personal decision, was so great that you ultimately did what was necessary to get there. The difference is that ultimately understanding that the difference to get to the next strategic thing has to be for somebody else, because you've already done it for yourself. Yeah,
that's right. No, I actually think that's surgically spot on. I mean, I think about where my headspace was at. 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. That was my time. As you could appreciate this, it was before the world woke up. It was before my kids would come in and start just. I love that time, but good Lord, I can't focus. I already have a problem with attention, but like magic time, 2 hours on myself and on the business. And then the rest of the day to go in and inspire and try to lead and be supportive for teams of people that I was trying to serve at my day job. That was a very demanding day job too, for like high growth company. Right. And so that period of time, oh my goodness, like that was me also simultaneously saying no to 3 different promotions. That's not a humble brag. That was just like what I had to do to cap my contribution of hours to my day job in order to then stay within that same run rate of morning and weekend and all my free time. And my hobby was then building the company. And if I wasn't being a dad, if I wasn't serving my team at work, and I wasn't spending time with Jennifer, which was more limited during that period of time, then it was just going straight into that business. And I think that saying no to promotions and that corporate style of value assignment, value assignment, and just like fancy your title. I didn't need more dinners. I didn't want more networking. I didn't care about that stuff. And I had to shy away from that. I just doubled down on working my ass off. And I think that it was this sense of like, I need to get control of my decisioning. And I love the visions of other companies. I really do. Like, I love inspiring visions. I love, I've always had a problem working for other people. If I didn't believe in their true north or their product or the company's product or service. But now I'm like, I'm even further beyond that. And you're probably in a similar spot, which is like, I don't think I could go back. I think I need to wholeheartedly believe in what I'm doing.
I am the worst employee ever. And like, the thing is that when you walk, I was listening to a guy the other day and he said that think of life like a big stair step. And every time you get to the next step and you stand on the edge of that step and you look to the back of that step, that's going to take you to the next one. Sit there for a minute, take it in, enjoy it, have gratitude, because understanding that when you step to the back of that step, that's a whole different person that's going to go. And so when I play golf with my friends and we play with some other investor friends that I respect and love, the joke that we have, and apparently this is not my case, so I missed the memo on this, but like, why do you have to scale? Do you have to scale because the society tells you that you have to grow? Like, I want to grow because I want to create jobs, like in the impact that we want to leave on this world. Like, we have a 50-year business plan. This is not a joke. Like, this will be something that is housing people for a long time, but that's my choice, right? That's the decision I've made with myself. But understanding that each million, each other 100,000, each extra project you take on is another piece of you that's pulling apart how much you have, right? And so I've strategically structured my day where I can have the best of both worlds. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I'm not thinking about work, all the time. It's just, but I'm a visionary. It's what I do. And so like, but I know that there's a time and place, and I already know when it's coming, when one of my business partners, who was one of my first, is going to get out of the military. He's going to be popped in because he's an ops guy. He's going to literally feed me out of the business. I'm going to disappear for like 3 or 4 months, 6 months. I'm going to literally shut it all down. And then literally, I told myself at 50, I'm going to look at, my whole goal for the rest of my life after 50 is to just teach kids, financial literacy and mindset, and then run funds and own businesses. But that'll be a new version of me, though. Like, right. But people don't like.
They don't get that yet. And
they don't get that. And I had some guy that I really respect, good businessman, family office. He said, I've never met anybody that has such a crystal clear vision of like 80 years old. Like, I know exactly.
80 years old?
Like, I already know, like at 70, 50, I spend a lot of time with myself. Like, when you get divorced and you're a drug addict and you're an alcoholic, like, you've spent some time with yourself. Like, a lot of time where like you're looking at the destruction of your life and you're going, how do we get here? You were born for great. And so you spend a lot of time, and then you start regaining confidence. And then you start, then who you were always meant to be starts showing itself. And then you're like, okay. So a good buddy of mine asked me, he said, are you the rocket ship or are you the rocket ship driver? And I was like, I think I have to be both right now. But at other times I would just want to be the rocket ship later on in my life. And so like,
for it, though.
Yeah. Right. And so like, I think that I really think it's as simple as this, because I think your goals are meaningless.
That's right.
I just don't think you've spent enough time actually visioning out to life that you want.
Oh man, we're getting into the fun stuff. I mean, I really do think that, so this question is so timely. The question of what is enough is the question that like literally has been coming up in our household and also just in, frankly, friend discussions recently, because people out there, the vast majority of people are just still going through an incredibly tough time, all walks of life, right? I mean, and we're talking about like good friends of ours, good friends of ours and people around the country and around the world. But I'll just say, like, COVID hasn't been kind. You got tumultuous, we got volatility in the equities markets. You got pick a reason, right? But the question of like, what is enough? And this is going to sound like big caveat for folks, very in tune with how privileged this is going to come across, right? I feel very fortunate to be sitting here comfortably, talking with Austin here, like enjoying this conversation, but also sitting in a comfortable, safe place, having good food, safe relationships, good health, all that stuff. So caveat complete. The question of what is enough is different for everybody. And the problem is people are just fucking terrified of it. And I am. If someone isn't terrified by that question, I'd love to hear how you figured that out. Because for us, let's talk about the real estate stuff for a sec, because I think you and I actually very aligned on this, Austin. I didn't know this before our podcast today. And disclaimer, like, this isn't something he and I worked out prior. This is something we're just talking about live. I don't care at all about unit count. I really don't. I don't care about assets under management. I don't care about that. And some people do it, and that this is not me passing judgment on that. So all that to say, if someone cares deeply about, maybe riding horses, maybe playing an instrument. I'm a guitar player, so I love playing that. Those are things like that's a thing. Guitar playing fills my cup. Spending time with my kids fills my cup. How much wealth? How big does our business have to be to serve our investors excellently? And also be able, so I'm doing something meaningful in the world with my time, scaling this business. But when people say, hey, Spence, how's growth going? How's scaling? I'd be like, hey, it's going great, because, but then the question follows up of, well, how many units, how much assets under management, how much equity raised? And it's like, I can give you the number, but why do you care? Because in the end, I just stopped sharing my shit with like 99% of people. Me too.
Like, totally. I just don't, like, people don't even know what I have going on. Like, I have 10 businesses. Like, they don't even know. Because like, I have equity. I have equity. And here's what's crazy, right? I'm still like not anywhere close. Cause like what people don't understand is like these businesses take a shitload of time to get off the ground. And then, but like understanding that we have one goal this year. Like, so literally my business partner, who's the technical guy, asks me all the time, like, what are your goals? What do you want the business metrics to be at? And I'm like, if you ever ask me that, I'll never give you the answer because I don't give a fuck. Like, and like, do you want to know my goal? I'll tell you very simply. I want to retire each one of our wives so they can go run their own businesses, and everybody in the company has a salary. They're safe and secure. That's all I care about. Once we get there, then we can decide what the next year looks like, because the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. I can go out and create income. See, this is the difference what people don't get. And this is where I'll drive this home. When you understand that you are ultimately the creator of everything that you want in life, I'm not talking about creator like God. I'm just saying your energy, your thoughts, your abilities, your actions, understanding that you can rise and fall your income when you're an entrepreneur. Because I could easily go out and sell an Airbnb course and probably make $1 million. And I will do something, but it's going to be on my terms when I want to do it. That's right. And too many people, because I coach a couple, let's say I'll use it for an example. Sorry, wholesalers. They're in the wholesale game and they are in the ultimate hamster wheel. And they are so tied to that dollar that comes in every month, they can't get off. I had my buddy text me the other day. I've coached him for a long time. He goes, I'm literally about to fire my entire team because I can't get off the hamster wheel. He goes, and I like the number that I see. I like the 200 I see every month, but I am so miserable. He goes, look, I have no more fun in my business. And then I look at my schedule and I have 45 meetings a week. There's not one thing on my schedule that's not a fuck to the yes. And so like that took me 2 years, 3 years. It took me a long time to get there. But now that we're there, nobody penetrates that shit. And so like my fiance knows that on Monday I have 15 meetings, and she's like, and at 7 o'clock when you get off, you're just as excited as you were when you started at 6 a.m. Like, and so like, it's that what you were talking about with the guitar and your family, like life is a circle. Like your life as a person is a circle. And the problem that I find most entrepreneurs is they're doing all the stuff that makes them money, but they're not happy.
Yeah.
Because they only focus on the thing that makes you money. But like if you do everything that makes you happy, then you can show up in the places that make you money more positive, more free, more happy.
Oh man. I appreciate you sharing that, Austin. I mean, it reminds me of this is funny. I'm like the opposite of a sports guy. You know, I'm a runner, do a lot of running. I go to a trainer, so I try to stay fit, et cetera, but I don't know much about team sports. I just don't. I played a long time ago when I was a kid, but ask me a football question, basketball question, and I'll blow it. But I still like all the leadership principles from the bigger sports guys anyways. And I've read their books because I'm a student of leadership from my prior career. I'm a little rusty now, but I remember it's just so deep in me that I always remember it. And John Wooden, man, I think he is the one who gets the credit for it was the quote and the lesson around life being just a juggling act, right? And it was about juggling all these different facets. You've got income and wealth, you've got family, you've got spirituality and whatever that happens to mean to that individual. You've got all these different facets of life. But the point being is every person, no one escapes this reality of everyone's juggling those. And you cannot drop any of them for a sustained period of time, any of them. You can drop them for a moment, periods of time, but you better pick it up again, or you've got real game ending stuff that's going to happen in your life. And I believe that to be the challenge, man. Like that is the ultimate challenge, is to feel like you're able to do all that without completely breaking your back to do it every single day. So finding that, whatever that Venn diagram, if you want to use a Venn diagram instead, of how to make all that overlap to the best of your ability, that's going to be different for everybody. But yeah, kudos to you on dialing in a day. That is so hard fought. I think that if people, like if I had gone to myself in, 10 years ago, I was working full-time still, clearly. Like I left my full-time leadership career in 2019. So I was doing all this entrepreneurship stuff nights and weekends and mornings. But if I had gone to myself and just said, we had this conversation in front of me, I would have said, look at these guys who are full of shit. These guys honestly think that like they don't have stuff figured out. They're just a bunch of complainers. They have all this autonomy and they have enough wealth to pay for their lives and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, there's not enough discussion in the entrepreneurship and particularly the real estate community about what happens 12 to 18 months after the financial freedom. That's the real fucking work, folks. Like, because if you go get there, this is not a complaint. This is just a reality. I challenge you to get there, and I look forward to talking about it, because 3 to 6 months out, go find a person who isn't struggling with working for the sake of working 3 to 6 months after complete financial freedom, and you will not find them. They're working themselves into jobs again. I did that. Other people do that. Some people don't even realize they construct an even more pick a unbreakable metal analogy, like a titanium hamster wheel that's even stronger than their W-2 career provided them. And they're really good at building those. But that is the challenge. And you can earn that challenge. And I hope most of you get there. It's not a fun one either. It's even harder. It's even harder than the one of getting free financially and starting a business, is you then have to go figure out, how do you go out and solve what is enough for yourself? I don't claim to have that figured out, by the way.
Well, I think what really did it for me is I struggled in my own business that I created. That's like my main business right now. And then I made some money, like some good money, nothing crazy, but some good money. And then it hit me like nothing about me changed. My lifestyle didn't change. I wasn't extra happier. Like nothing changed. And I go, oh, it doesn't fucking matter. Okay, cool. So it's just the new norm that I expect this momentum. And like, and the thing is like, it's just, it's so cool to understand that there's other aspects like of you that make you a neat you. And I think the only issue I have in the real estate community is that the flipper is hanging out with other flippers talking about flipping.
Yes.
And it's like, there's such a bigger world out there, because you're basically just, you're stacking up your own thoughts and you want to hear the same thing over and over again. And like, the thing is like externally, there's always going to be a recession. There's always going to be a market that's down. There's always going to be a market that's up. And it's very simple. It sounds so easy to say, but it's never as bad as it seems. And it's never as good as it seems. It's somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. Man, I love that. Yeah. I mean, even, gosh, you just made me think about that echo chamber dynamic of, we all, like, I love that intense, like if you're inside of a company, and we've experienced this, of course, is like, I mean, particularly when you're working with other companies and coaching through them, you get to like peer into and have to analyze cultures. And cultures, oh my goodness, I am so good at pouring other people's Kool-Aid that's my job, plug me in as a director. That was what I did for a few companies. It was like brought in to help turn teams around, have to make very hard decisions about staffing, and then hire more people who are more capable of being down to pour and drink the same Kool-Aid that I was to get this company where it had to go. It's a really hard line of work. And I bring that up because like, ultimately, the real challenge was like figuring out how to make Kool-Aid about our own family and like our own life. As corny as that sounds. And by the way, folks, I'm not talking about actual drinking Kool-Aid, the drink. I'm talking about like finding a vision or a version of a vision that is something you can stand behind and give your full-throated support to and advocacy. That's ultimately for me, Austin, I think like what is coming around, and this has taken years. Like I left my W-2 back in 2019. And so it's taken more than 2 years, I think, of being fully focused on this through COVID, which is more just like an epic, challenging, brutal distraction, physically being a parent of young kids through that at the same time. And then figuring out how do you get yourself excited about what you are working on to then go serve other people.
Sure.
That's it, man. That's the challenge.
Yeah. And I think that if I look at you and I forecast out kind of the next iteration of Spencer, I see you as a high level consultant / wealth creator to unlock other people's personal freedoms that you have done in yourself.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And what I realized as a coach was I have to jump through the fiery door before they do.
Yeah, right.
In the moment that I realized that I had to be the one pushed off the ledge first, I literally lost all fear. This is for somebody else. I'm just figuring this out. I'm running ads this way. I'm starting this business this way. Oh, I'm just going to tell my clients how to do it. Oh, I started a podcast. I'm going to help them launch a podcast. As soon as I did that, I was like, oh, I don't care about anything anymore.
Right. Every big, scary thing that you just listed out of there, well, unfortunately, it will stop most people dead in their tracks, and they will literally never do it because of the crippling fear. Yeah, but I appreciate you saying that. I just have to, I mean, candidly, I will say this.
No, you have to take enough time and oxygen in between the last stop to the next stop where you can ultimately take a place in that seat where it's completely for you.
Yes.
And none of the old feelings are there. And that's going to take a little time.
Yeah. Well, and also I think one thing I have a deep respect for, candidly, is like we were chatting before we started hitting record today. And you were just kind of walking me through some aspects that are fascinating and exciting about what you're working on in your business. And it's frankly, it's impressive, man. And because you're spanning industries. And one of the things about spanning industries that I think is worthwhile and noteworthy, as a guy I haven't done the consultant seat for businesses. I've been the in-house badged employee internal view at multiple companies, but I've jumped 3 industries. And once you've done that enough times, you start to realize that same as that person you brought up earlier, that person who is not very interested in real estate whatsoever. So put them into something else and they'll be very interested in it. Mm-hmm. You framework the world. You just framework everything. Everything's a framework at that point. And that's not cold and dehumanizing it. It's more just thinking like, it's empowering. It's like, I can take on anything subject matter content wise, because now I understand the questions to ask.
Yeah.
And that's it.
It's the same concept of understanding that I didn't know that half of my fucking job as a coach was going to be to tell my clients how to be more present as a father and a husband. Yeah, I don't have kids and I'm divorced. You didn't know that, but what it's done is it's taught me to look at something behind the something, right? Like, meaning like, hey, my son feels lost and, he's kind of like fussing because he doesn't know how. I'm like, well, did you feel that way when you were a kid and your father put you, well, yeah, I wonder why your son feels that way. And it's like, it really doesn't matter what we're selling. It doesn't matter what the business is. It matters that, have we tapped into the human reason why you're even here in the first place?
Yeah.
And then letting said employee or founder or CEO or salesperson, and understanding that if I can teach you how to think, then the game's over. Like, literally, we're taught in school, what to think, like memorization and all this stuff. But like, all I'm getting you to realize is that your emotions are dictating 90% of how you're acting, and your subconscious runs the show after that.
That's right. It's the temperament,
It's temperament, dude. Like, I was the most emotional person you've ever met in your life, and I'm still a work in progress. But I literally 2 years ago was like, you got to work on this. You have to not give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like and so like, we're closing on a couple $1 million properties, and we might find out today if the appraisal came in, but like, I just don't give a crap.
Yeah.
Like, how you buy $100 million portfolio, you don't care about the one deal.
Yeah. Oh my
it's
God.
like, like, that's it.
It's true. I mean, like, I think, God, you just got me fired up about it. What was this topic I was debating with someone about the other day, and it was about being dispassionate, about about big moments and stress levels, even if it's something that clearly matters to you a lot, is like trying to find and control one's ability to be dispassionate when making decisions and not letting unnecessary stress get to you. And the answer for me personally, there's two things in my life that have helped me get there. And this is getting a bit more heady into habits. And anyone that says they're not related to financial success is crazy. But I've got running, and I've also got, frankly, like meditation, not the fancy kind. I literally am talking about using Headspace, as an app on my phone. Those things, they always bring me back to center on, like, these things are happening around me, whether it's $1 million closing or if it's a big apartment deal that we're working on. People relying on us. We have LP investors. If there's a deal going through bumps in the road, like during COVID, when it first started in 2020, March and April 2020, the ability to label something, that's not you. It's an event, it's just something that's occurring in the world, and it's not you. And so I think that we're about to go, I'm going to bring us dangerously closer into the philosophical heady space where I lose people. But I'll just say that for me, that clicked in a big way, and habits helped me get back there. But that's why you have to lean into them so much. And I've had to lean into them so much when we have 3 concurrent deals happening, and they're big stakes, and there's a ton of investors relying on us and a lot of capital at play. And I just sit there and I'm like, you know what? These events are very serious, but the more emotion I keep attributed to this, the lower quality my decisions will be.
Well,
so that's
it's really odd, because as my business continues to go higher and we're getting in headier stuff and bigger deals and everything, I'm realizing that all we're really working on right now is putting a moat around the decisions.
Yeah.
Meaning protecting the energy of the decision, and it's less working and more judgment.
Yeah, that's right.
And understanding that game, right? Which means, like, are you eating good? Are you working out? Are you taking enough time to walk in nature? Because if you're not making a decision from that place, you're gonna lose a lot of money.
100%. Yes. I mean, you gotta remove yourself. You're too close.
But that's also a shifting up the identity of not associating working hard with working.
Right. Yeah.
So that's like the game, right?
I got to share this one thing, because it was given to me by a guy who I'll probably have to give credit to being the most important mentor in my life. And he already knows it. But he's been my boss 3 times, I think, at different companies. And he's a good friend of mine. But the last time he was my boss in the corporate world before I quit, this company was going through a lot of change headcount wise at the time. That's a very corporate way of saying, unfortunately, some people had to get let go, I think. And the message that I heard from him give, and I never heard it quite this way, and it was so helpful, is that, before someone walks out the door of a company, whether it's willingly or it's by the company's choice, a lot of times they cannot get away from that stress, and they can't see how they fit in this puzzle because they are adopting the company's problems. Mm-hmm. And the moment that any of us walks out the door as an employee, how much do you think about those companies' problems? And they're gone. And that really stuck with me. And I wish I had heard that earlier in my career with that phrasing, and kudos to him for packaging it that way. But I would just say it's huge, man, because people can't even, all the concepts that like you've shared and that we've talked about so far today, Austin, unfortunately, I think they get diminishing returns compared to their full potential until someone is ready to even field that stuff. And the folks that are really in it, like the perceived crushing pressure of the day-to-day of their jobs and careers, some of which is very tangible and real because it's tied to their only income in their household and they need that paycheck. So I'm not too detached from that, folks, but I'll just say that stuff's gone the moment you leave that company. If you're a PM, if you're a salesperson, if you got a quota hiding, and I've had my quotas plenty of times before. So like all that stuff, it's gone. So don't borrow people's problems. Certainly don't borrow a company's problems, but
don't allow other people to inject their values into you or their urgency.
Right. Yes, that's right. And that's just,
there's the number one thing. Let me tell you something. This is really odd from a guy who's super busy. I cannot stand to be rushed. Like, don't rush me with your bullshit. Like, either you didn't plan properly. Like, these are big deals. I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to be rushed. That's why I think this real estate market's out of his fucking mind, because everybody's just, no inspection. Like, there's a way to do business, and how we've been doing it ain't right. Like, there's a process, there's a time. That's why these things are in place. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm working on a DAO, to buy real estate through crypto, but like, that's still going to work its process. Like, and I think that's the number one lesson that I can take away this year has taught me is like, some of these things need time to breathe, because here's what happens. We got to get out of here, but here's what happens. By giving it time to breathe, sometimes you allow people to show themselves who they really are.
That's right. That's right, man. Oof. I don't want to interrupt with anything else besides that point. That was a good point to close on.
Because I just had a deal that I took a bath on because I carried my reputation and had to put up the money. And because I let it run its course and I didn't press it, I know I will never do business with these people again. If I would have rushed it, we would have been deep in a deal and I would have lost hundreds of $1,000s instead of a couple thousand.
The time matters. It matters actually more than I think a lot of folks, particularly I think in entrepreneurship who are building their companies, can unfortunately like financially allow themselves to get to, and that is one of those tough realities that I think a lot of folks, like when we were trying to when I was building our business on nights and weekends, we took longer than I think I wanted to, because it was the hardest thing ever to do both, to ramp up income from our business while also maintaining the day job was brutally crushing. In terms of tax on myself. Like, I went to full out burnout mode, but it was delayed because I couldn't afford to quit. And then our business, thankfully, man, like it actually wasn't dire whatsoever. Like we were in a great fucking spot by the time that I quit, because we had worked so hard and invested regularly for years. But that process of leading up to it was absolutely brutal. And I think that I bring that up because getting to the point of not being rushed is something you have time to prepare yourself for, though. That was a bit heady for folks. So like, just to say it another way, like any person's in their individual circumstances and they've carved those circumstances, whether they like it or not, they've created those circumstances largely that they're in right now for the most part, not all of it. But they have a chance now from their starting point to accept that and then build a plan on whatever time horizon they need, 3 years, 5 years, 15 years. Like I gave myself a very long runway so I didn't have to rush. And that was freaking hard. It was really hard. And that was while working as aggressively as I've ever worked in my entire life for years. And so, that was important. I think you're nailing an important concept, man. The bigger the decision, the slower it should generally go. And I think that frameworks can help speed some of that up. That was the thing I learned from people far smarter than I am. Brilliant folks in the tech world who can't afford to wait that long. They have to make big, heavy, scary decisions as fast as you can imagine, but they have to do them with rigor. And so, we do try to operate based on those principles in our own business, even now, whether we're looking at a $40 million real estate deal, and if it pencils in a competitive market, or if it's like, hey, let's just go invest a 5 or 6 digit number into a private real estate fund, or like a private niche, even weirder thing that's out there. It just, you got to find your own framework.
I love it. So if people want to find out about your company and how they invest, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can come to MadisonInvesting.com. That's our website, and they can book some time with me. We are only accepting accredited investors right now, just because I'm also registered with FINRA. But I would say that I'm always happy to get on the phone and just talk shop on the market with folks. This isn't like a call up and I'm going to pitch you a deal thing. This is an investment club. We do this because I don't onboard thousands of investors by design. Well, we want to welcome folks into the group that we feel like is a good alignment and want to invest alongside us.
I love it. Guys, if you like this episode, send it out to your friends. We'll see you next time, and share it with somebody that'll get some value.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.